My name is Pete Wykamp. I retired from the New York DOT agency 3 years ago, and I've been kind of out of the field a little bit, but I have been working on bridge maintenance, mostly in the training end, and we're going to talk a little bit about training, if we can talk about training. What I'd like to do right now is actually take your picture, and because I get a lot of pictures from other meetings and conferences and whatnot, but it's always at the speaker. So this time I'm going to go this way.
Pete, you want to be in the picture?
No. And then when we're all done, I want you all to applaud and look like lively, and I'll take that picture again instead of getting booed. I'm also really interested, because now there's federal legislation change and all that was coming about when I retired, it's really interesting now to learn that you can move a barn swallow nest because the bridge is endangered, that's progress, I think. All right, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about training, and that's pretty much what I've been involved with on a part-time basis. I'm not doing this full-time. Believe me, there's other things to do. All right, so training, where and how to get it. And we're going to try to start a PowerPoint so it looks official. This is not a technical presentation, but I know there's people here that are, and this is training not necessarily for your managers, although it kind of helps. This is more training for your crews. So I'm speaking mostly to the agencies that have crews, but also the agencies that contract work have to know what's going on also and understand some skill sets that the contractors need to have. So the point of this whole presentation is that the training is available. It can be local. You don't necessarily have to travel for training. There's different options, and not only is it worthwhile, though it's necessary. We're going to see a bunch of innovations going on just with the vendors in the other room, and it's necessary actually to stay abreast of what's going on. So what's in it for you? Well, you have to understand the bridge needs, of course, and the crew skill sets. We're going to talk about what you can actually do with your crews, and with some additional training, you may be able to take on some more, or at least investigate whether you can actually add that kind of program to your existing program. Of course, user delays, there could be some reduction in injuries and all that from the worksite injuries. And generally, I found that additional training for the crews that do the work is well received, sometimes a little bit with some reluctance because they have to go to a meeting, that kind of thing, and who's this guy? Does he think he's the expert? I've been doing this for 30 years, that kind of stuff. But usually at the end of those meetings, those guys come back with some kind of ideas or a higher morale is basically the point. So formal training, there is a new NHI course on bridge maintenance. These are very formal courses. It's been vetted through FHWA, and these are training adult type facilities. These programs NHI has curriculum developers. There's apparently a college degree in that. How adults learn, for instance. And so there's different ways that the material is presented. There's activities, there's show and tells, and then of course there's lecture and video and whatnot. There is a recommended prerequisite for this particular version of the bridge maintenance course, and it's a web-based training. And we'll get into that in a minute, but this is what the NHI folks are trying to sell you folks. And there's a whole list there of things you can do with it. But the NHI fees are fairly expensive. It's a formal 4-day approach, very thorough. It can be tailored to some extent. I know if you're talking about joints, or for instance, you don't have any timber bridges. Mostly state agencies, for the most part, can afford this kind of cost. And if you don't have any timber bridges, for instance, we can just remove the module on timber bridges and focus on what it is that you'd like to do. There's a number of trainers. Some of those trainers are NHI certified. It's a whole other level of how to conduct a classroom. There is an assessment. You pass. You have at least a certificate that you've passed this particular course. You might get CEUs or so if you're an engineer and you need those. This is the web-based training. If you go on the website, I don't know if you can see that, but the fee is $0. There's also a 500 seat. I think they can change that 500 seat max, but it's kind of a worthwhile thing to go through yourself. It's self-timed. You can kind of move ahead or so, but there is an assessment, so you don't want to miss anything. You want to make sure you get all the answers right. And it's not necessarily a prerequisite, but I know some of the crews coming in are a little devoid of certain, say, mechanical actions on a bridge, how bridges move, or even some components. And sometimes some agencies are sending very inexperienced bridge folks in. So this is a module on the web-based training. These are kind of the things that they cover. Then we also have NCPP training. This is something that Ed has been really pushing to get out. We've done some of this kind of over the years, but we now put out a flyer. It's kind of a little bit more of a sales pitch. We have currently 5 modules. These things are pretty much lecture-based. There is some kind of activities. We'd also like to, this is something for the vendors out here, and I believe, Dick, you might be the person, the liaison to the vendors. So this is more of an informal type training. This is not vetted through curriculum developers or anything like that, but it certainly can be updated and changed, and you can, if there are local agents, and this is also geared more to local agencies. This is more of an introduction to what bridge preservation is, or bridge maintenance. I personally think they're interchangeable terms. They don't mean one or the other. I know there's some differences in this room, but we don't want to spend all kinds of time on vernacular. Anyway, we have 5 options for the modules already. Sometimes you can put these in a whole day, half day, or whatever it is you want to focus on. If there's any vendors out there that want to work with this, please let me know, or let Dick know. There's bridge maintenance training. Is about this is nothing is really set in stone, but it's about $2,000 per class as opposed to about $1,000 per head for the NHI. So it's a lot cheaper. It's 1 day or adjustable, and it's at a local facility. The TS2 website, TSP2 website, it's self-training, but there is a ton of stuff there. Aaron has been working on this, and Ed and NCPP have been putting stuff up, and you folks too have been putting stuff up there. There's a ton of stuff up there that goes through what people have already already experienced, and it's certainly a time saver, and it's a resource. And the whole idea, the concept of this whole thing Ed talked about years ago when it started was that provide some of this one-stop portal type thing for you folks. Agency-sponsored training, this is something from PennDOT. They do, I know Ohio does like a bridge, more of a crew-related conference. This is Ben Foster's from Maine. He's got a workshop on bridge maintenance for local folks. Agency manuals, some of these are posted. Unfortunately, I've been working on this, the NHI course and some of the other things, and I've spent a lot of times on the internet looking for things, for information that have been uploaded. There isn't a lot. There really isn't a lot. Really, there's no bridge, very few, I will say, bridge maintenance manuals. They're coming around, but there's really, we could use a lot more work in there. Industry technology demonstrations. The picture there with the putting the strip seal in is from Orlando, 2014. As Ed mentioned, it's like every 4 years there'll be another national demonstrations, but you don't have to wait for a national demonstration. You can actually do some of these things in your own yard. I know that there are a host of vendors that are willing to travel to a facility and bring the crews right in there, low cost. You might provide a lunch, maybe $10 a head or something like that. But certainly when you bring food in, a lot more guys are interested. FHWA sponsored training. We had these guys here for a couple of sessions on heat straightening. Unfortunately, this is a research program that has been that had a research with heat straightening and a demonstration component to it, and they've had that. Project is done, but I do think there is some kind of way to resurrect this heat straightening. It was actually incredibly informative. Program level training, these are some of the things. Those are some welding booths. We needed to get some welders in New York, so we tried to do that at a local level. We brought in a retired BOCES shop teacher, welding shop teacher, set up these booths, and these guys just burned rod for a couple days. There's somebody, your local guy talking about saw blades. And then something about they call that super stud erection system. Enhancing capabilities. These are, you'll get into, a crew might pick up a particular skill, or somebody might actually get hired in off the street that knows something about some particular aspect, and then he builds he might be a supervisor, or somehow that crew learns how to do something different, and lo and behold, all of a sudden, as a manager, you have somebody who's capable of doing something you could not do before. You would have to go to contract. So, and particularly steelwork in New York was something that we just kept working on. References and resources, I'm going to go through NHI, NCPP, we mentioned that, agencies. LTAP is coming around. For the most part, the local transportation assistance program has been focused on pavements. One of the reasons, one way that this thing got started is we were just jealous of what the pavements already had. Pavement preservation people had these meetings. We didn't have, and we kept saying, what about bridge? LTAP is the same way. They have a road master's program or a road scholar program, and these guys get certificates, they get like diplomas, but they don't, there isn't a single bridge course in any one of those things. And I'm going to go back to the feds because this is a federal funded program. There's no bridges. There aren't any bridges. You can get a road, you're a road master, but you don't know anything about bridges. That's just unbelievable. Association, industry will come in. You can bring your local Hilti, your Fastenal guy. You can come into the shop. I'm sure you've done that already. Associations, there's a shotcrete association. They could come in. It could be a vendor within that association will come in, and they'll do demonstrations. And there isn't any. You have the bridges. You have the need. There is a pothole, there is a joint, there is a substructure that needs some attention, and most often, if you can arrange it, those vendors will come in and actually work on that bridge for you. Not that it might solve it, it's always kind of a question, but you bring your materials guys out with you, whoever's doing the QPL or the approved products list or so, and they can kind of start recording this, and lo and behold, you might have a product that you can get in a year or two. So for review, you always got the duct tape, but that's not really working anymore, and you're going to have to go back and retape it. But so there's various types of training. It can start right here. If you have a need, it can start right here. You can talk to the vendors directly. You can talk to folks from NCPP. There isn't, I don't know if there's any NHI folks in here, but certainly there's contact information all through the web. All right, any questions or anything from you folks? Anything unique? Anybody have anything? All right, so at this point, I'm done. Now we'll start the technical presentations. I want you all to clap if you would. I appreciate that very much, thank you. Yay, all right, thank you. All right, have a good meeting. Certainly get yourself around, talk to people you don't know, ask questions, and enjoy yourselves while you're in Maryland. And have a crab cake.